The colony of Aurelia Prime lay nestled on the edge of a green valley, its sleek silver buildings reflecting the pale light of a distant sun. Life on the planet was peaceful, almost too peaceful. Settlers moved about their days with quiet routines. Engineers repairing drones, farmers tending biodomes, children playing under synthetic skies. Humans had tamed this world, shaping it into a haven where danger seemed distant and history a distant memory. Among the residents lived Lyra, a young engineer known for her sharp mind and gentle nature. Her hair, dark and silky, framed a face that carried both warmth and quiet determination. She loved her work, finding joy in creating machines that made life easier for her neighbors. But Lyra was not one to rush into excitement. She preferred the calm predictability of her days. She enjoyed the simplicity of her life, the rhythm of the colony, and the occasional quiet evening spent under Aurelia's artificial stars. One morning, a stranger arrived. He came in a small transport shuttle, a vessel unlike the usual colony ships. Its hull was dark, polished, and almost unassuming, but the way it landed, careful, deliberate, and almost silent, caught the attention of many. As the hatch opened, the stranger stepped out. He was tall, with a calm presence that seemed to fill the small landing platform without a word. His clothes were simple, practical, yet his posture spoke of discipline and experience. And in his hand he carried a blade, small, sleek, and glowing faintly with a light that was not quite natural. The stranger's eyes were what drew Lyra's attention first. They were deep, dark, and thoughtful, as though he carried countless stories within them. He moved slowly, observing the colony without panic, without fear, without hurry. People whispered among themselves, unsure of this newcomer. Some found him intriguing. Others found him strange, almost unsettling in his calm. Lyra, however, felt something else. Curiosity, yes, but also an unshakable sense of recognition, as if she had known him from a dream she could not fully recall. She approached cautiously, offering a polite nod. The stranger returned it, his lips curling into a faint, almost shy smile. "I am Kale," he said, his voice soft but steady. It was not loud or commanding, yet there was an authority in it, subtle and undeniable. "I seek work and a place to stay," Lyra smiled back. "Then you have come to the right place. Welcome to Aurelia Prime. I am Lyra. I work in the colony's engineering division." Kale's eyes lingered on her for a moment longer than necessary, as though studying her, trying to understand her and perhaps recognizing her as someone who mattered. "It is good to meet you, Lyra," he replied. "Your world is different. Peaceful, yet I sense depth beneath it." Lyra tilted her head, curious at his words. "Depth?" Kale's gaze drifted to the horizon, where the synthetic mountains met the pale sky. "Life here is ordered," he said softly. "But order often hides the stories of strength, courage, and legends." He paused, and then added almost to himself, "Even in quiet places, the world waits for those who will awaken it." Lyra found herself smiling, though she did not fully understand his meaning. There was a strange magnetism about Kale, a calm intensity that drew people without effort. She invited him to her home for the night, offering a simple meal and a bed in the guest quarters. Over the next few days, Kale began to settle in. He did not speak much, yet when he did, his words carried weight. He would help with repairs in the colony, silently observing the systems, noticing flaws others overlooked. He moved with a precision that seemed unusual, yet never boastful. People began to notice, whispering that there was something extraordinary about the quiet man who arrived without warning. Lyra, meanwhile, felt herself drawn to him more with each passing day. She found comfort in his presence, a strange sense of calm that made the world feel safer. They spent long evenings walking among the colony's biodomes, discussing simple matters, engineering problems, the patterns of Aurelia's weather, the artificial constellations overhead. And yet, beneath the surface of their conversations, Lyra sensed unspoken truths, a life lived beyond the colony, experiences that had shaped him into someone more than ordinary. One evening, while repairing a solar relay near the edge of the settlement, Kyle paused and drew his blade. The metal gleamed in the dim light, faint lines of energy running along its surface. Lyra's heart quickened. "This blade," Kale said softly, "is not just for protection. It carries history. It carries legends, and soon you may understand why it has chosen me." Lyra took a step back, unsure of what he meant. Kale's expression remained calm, almost contemplative. "Do not fear," he said, noticing her hesitation. "I do not seek conflict here. Yet there are forces beyond this world, forces that will come. And when they do, humans will need to awaken their true potential." Lyra nodded, though the weight of his words pressed on her mind. There was a strange mixture of dread and fascination in her chest, as though her ordinary life had been quietly shifted into something larger, something unknown. Days passed. Kale's presence became part of the colony's rhythm. He would train quietly, moving in ways that seemed impossible for a human, his blade slicing through practice targets with unmatched precision. People began to admire him, not just for his skill but for his calm, unwavering demeanor. Yet no one could fully understand him, and Lyra herself found that she did not wish to. She was content to simply be near him, to listen when he spoke and to watch when he acted. Then, one evening, Kyle approached Lyra under the artificial stars. His eyes, calm and unwavering, met hers. "Lyra," he said softly, "I have found peace here and I have found purpose. But there is something else. Something that cannot wait any longer." Lyra's heart beat faster. "Kale, what do you mean?" He drew closer, the soft glow of his blade illuminating his face. "I have wandered many worlds," he said. "I have seen humans rise and fall, legends born and lost. And now I wish to share my life with you. Will you marry me?" Lyra froze, stunned. The words were quiet, yet carried the weight of eternity. There was no flamboyance, no grand gesture, just Kyle standing there, soft-spoken and steady, offering her a future she had never imagined. Her mind raced. She barely knew him, and yet she had felt his presence touch her in ways she could not explain. She remembered the calm he brought, the strange sense of recognition in his eyes, the way he seemed to see not just her, but the strength in everyone around him. And above all, she remembered the sense that her life, ordinary as it seemed, had quietly shifted the moment he arrived. "Yes," she whispered, finally finding her voice. "I will marry you." Kale's eyes softened, a rare smile crossing his features. "Then we begin together," he said simply. "And soon you will see that the world is far larger and far more extraordinary than it seems." That night, as Lyra lay in bed, she could not sleep. She thought of Kyle's words, of the glowing blade, of the calm intensity he carried. The colony slept peacefully around them, unaware of the quiet ripples of change spreading through their lives. Lyra stared at the artificial stars above, feeling a strange mixture of excitement and unease. She did not know what the future held, but for the first time she understood that her life was no longer hers alone. Something larger, something legendary had arrived, and Kale, the soft-spoken stranger, was the key. The weeks after Kale's arrival passed with a strange mixture of peace and quiet tension. Lyra and Kale settled into their modest home on the edge of the colony, a simple structure with large windows that looked out over the valley. Inside, the walls were lined with Lyra's tools and Kale's few possessions. A few books, a small chest of personal items, and his blade, which he kept in a stand near the window. Kale's presence was gentle but powerful. He did not speak much, and when he did, it was measured and thoughtful. Lyra found herself learning from him in ways she had not expected. He had a remarkable way of observing the world, noticing details others missed. He could anticipate minor issues in the colony systems before they became problems, suggesting improvements with quiet confidence. The colony, used to technological order, began to take note of this unusual talent. Despite his calm demeanor, Kyle maintained a strict routine. Each morning he rose before dawn to practice with his blade in the small clearing behind their home. Lyra would often watch from a distance, fascinated by his precise movements. Each swing, each step was deliberate, almost ceremonial. It was as if he were preparing not just for physical combat, but for something much larger, something that the colony could not yet understand. One morning, Lyra decided to approach him. "Kyle," she said gently, "why do you train so rigorously every day?" "There is no danger here." Kale paused mid-swing, lowering his blade. "Peace is fragile," he replied softly. "Even in places like this, forces beyond our understanding can arrive. I train to ensure that when the time comes, we will not be helpless." Lyra nodded, though the unease in her chest grew. There was something in his tone, a seriousness that hinted at knowledge she could not grasp. She wanted to ask more, but the words stuck in her throat. Kale's quiet strength was both comforting and intimidating. Life in the colony continued with small but strange disruptions. Drones malfunctioned for no apparent reason, communications with nearby outposts became intermittent, and the energy fields above Aurelia Prime fluctuated unpredictably. Most settlers shrugged it off as minor technical issues, but Cale noticed. One evening, as the sun's pale light faded behind the synthetic mountains, Cale and Lyra walked along the edge of the colony's main settlement. He stopped near a small observation platform and looked out over the valley. "These disturbances are unusual," he said. "They are not natural. Something or someone is testing this place," Lyra frowned. "Testing? But why?" Cale did not answer immediately. He gazed at the horizon, his expression unreadable. Some forces seek to measure strength to find weakness. And humans? Humans have more potential than most realize. That is why I am here, to prepare this colony and perhaps to prepare humanity itself. Lyra shivered slightly. She wanted to trust him completely, but the thought of unknown dangers lurking beyond the colony filled her with unease. Yet there was no fear in Cale, only a calm readiness that seemed to radiate outward. She could not help but feel that somehow she would find courage in his presence. As days passed, Cale began to integrate into the colony more actively. He helped with engineering projects, repaired broken drones, and advised on improving security systems. His suggestions were always precise and effective, earning him quiet respect from the settlers. People began to seek his counsel, even as they remained unsure of his past. Lyra noticed that children were drawn to him as well. They would follow him during his morning routines, fascinated by his skill with the blade. Cale treated them gently, teaching them balance, focus, and observation. He never spoke of violence, only of discipline and awareness. The children adored him, and through them Lyra saw a softer, more human side of Cale that few others witnessed. One evening, the colony held a celebration to mark the anniversary of Aurelia Prime's founding. Lanterns floated in the sky, casting a soft glow over the settlement. Music played from speakers hidden among the buildings, and families gathered to share meals and stories. Cale attended quietly, standing at the edge of the crowd with Lyra. A group of settlers approached him, curious about the stranger whose reputation was spreading through the colony. "Kyle," one asked nervously, "what is it about you? How do you know so much about our systems? And now that blade of yours?" Cale smiled faintly, not unkindly. "I have traveled far," he said softly. "I have seen many worlds, many civilizations. My knowledge comes from experience, not magic or mystery. As for the blade, it is a tool, a symbol of responsibility, and a reminder that humans can achieve greatness when they understand themselves." Lyra squeezed his hand. She felt proud even as a quiet unease lingered. There was so much she did not know about him, and yet she trusted him completely. There was a bond forming between them, quiet but strong, rooted in shared understanding and respect. The peace, however, was not to last. Small warning signs appeared first. A faint tremor in the ground, a distant hum in the energy fields, and flickers of strange light in the night sky. The colony's sensors detected anomalies, but no one could identify the source. Cale observed these changes closely, his expression serious. One night, while Lyra slept, he left their home and walked to the edge of the settlement. He raised his blade to the sky, its faint glow reflecting in his eyes. He whispered words in a language Lyra did not understand, but the energy around him seemed to respond. The air itself felt charged, and the quiet valley seemed alive with anticipation. Lyra, awakened by the unusual light, stepped outside. "Kyle," she called softly. He turned to her, his eyes calm and steady. "Do not worry," he said. "I am only preparing. There are forces beyond this world that will come. I am ensuring we are ready, and you will need to understand that your life is about to change." Lyra nodded, unsure of what to say. She felt fear, yes, but also a deep sense of purpose. Being near Kyle, seeing him act with such calm confidence made her feel stronger than she ever had. Somehow she knew that whatever was coming, they would face it together. The next morning, the colony awoke to strange readings in the skies. Drones began malfunctioning more frequently, and communication with neighboring settlements became erratic. Settlers whispered among themselves, worried about unknown threats, but Kyle remained calm. He worked tirelessly, helping repair systems, organizing patrols, and training volunteers in defensive strategies. Lyra watched him, amazed by his patience and skill. Even as the colony trembled with uncertainty, Kale's calm presence reassured them all. His quiet guidance inspired confidence, and settlers began to act with courage they did not know they possessed. Over the next week, the disturbances grew. Energy fields above the valley shimmered in strange patterns, and faint signals appeared on the colony's sensors, signals that were neither natural nor technological. Lyra began to understand that Kale's warning had not been idle words. There was a threat approaching, something beyond their current understanding. Despite the tension, life continued. Lyra and Kale spent evenings together, sharing small moments of normalcy, preparing meals, tending a small garden, and walking under the synthetic stars. Kale rarely spoke of his past, but he shared wisdom in quiet ways, teaching Lyra to observe, anticipate, and remain calm in the face of uncertainty. One afternoon, Lyra found herself watching Kale train in the clearing behind their home. He moved with grace and precision, each motion purposeful. She noticed how his eyes seemed to read not only the physical world but the unseen forces around him. There was an intensity in his focus that hinted at hidden strength, a strength that might soon be needed to protect the colony. Lyra approached him carefully. "Kale, do you ever fear what might come?" He lowered his blade and looked at her. "Fear is natural," he said softly, "but fear without action is useless. We must be ready, not just with skill but with understanding. Humans have a power that even the universe often underestimates. You will see. In time, this colony, and perhaps all of humanity, will rise to meet challenges greater than we imagine." Lyra felt a mixture of awe and apprehension. Kale's words were both comforting and unsettling. She realized that their peaceful life was only a brief calm, before a storm she could not yet see, and she understood with a strange certainty that her own strength, and the strength of every human around her, would soon be tested. That night, Lyra lay awake beside Kale, listening to the quiet hum of the colony. The stars above Aurelia Prime flickered gently, but beneath their soft light the valley thrummed with a hidden energy. Kale's presence was steady, a silent promise of protection and guidance. Lyra felt a bond with him deeper than words, a trust born of quiet understanding and shared purpose. She did not yet know what lay ahead. But she knew this. The arrival of Kyle, the soft-spoken stranger with the glowing blade, had changed everything. The calm of Aurelia Prime was about to be broken, and with it the latent potential of humanity would begin to awaken. And Lyra, standing beside him, would be part of that awakening. The night sky over Aurelia Prime was darker than usual, a soft violet hue mingling with the pale artificial stars. The colony slept peacefully, or at least most of the settlers did. But Kale did not sleep. He stood on the edge of the settlement, his blade in hand, glowing faintly in the dim light. Every muscle in his body was tense, attuned to the subtle vibrations of the valley, the faint shifts in energy that no ordinary human could sense. Lyra, unable to sleep, followed him quietly. She knew better than to interrupt him, yet she felt compelled to watch. She saw the calm in his stance, the quiet determination in his eyes. Kale moved as if the world itself was speaking to him, and he alone could understand its message. A sudden ripple in the air caught his attention. A faint hum resonated from the skies, almost musical, almost unnatural. Kale's eyes narrowed. "They are coming," he murmured, his voice barely audible. Lyra's heart pounded. "Who? What is coming?" Kale did not answer immediately. He adjusted his grip on the blade and raised it slightly, the glow intensifying. "Not yet," he said softly. "But soon you will see why humans must rise, why we are more than we know." Moments later, the first signs appeared. Shapes shimmered in the sky, translucent and luminous, moving with a fluid, unpredictable motion. The energy fields above the colony flickered, casting strange shadows over the buildings. Drones and automated defenses whirred to life, but their sensors struggled to lock onto the alien presence. The settlers awoke to panic, rushing from their homes, eyes wide with fear. Lyra grabbed Kale's arm. "We have to get inside." Kyle shook his head gently. "No, we stand here together, you must see this." The shapes descended, their forms now clearer. Creatures of light and energy, their movements precise yet alien. They advanced silently, their presence overwhelming the senses. The colony's shields flickered under the strain, warning lights flashing across the settlement. Kyle stepped forward, his blade glowing brighter, resonating with the strange energy in the air. He moved with grace, each step deliberate, each swing of the blade precise. It was as if he was not just defending himself but reading the intentions of the attackers, anticipating their movements before they acted. Lyra watched in awe. She had seen Kale practice before, but this was different. The blade seemed alive in his hands, responding to his thoughts and the rhythm of the alien attackers. With every swing, a pulse of energy emanated outward, striking the invaders with perfect accuracy. Some fell apart into glowing particles, others dissipated into thin air, and yet more advanced creatures adapted quickly. The settlers screamed and ran, but Kale's calmness anchored the chaos. He moved among them with fluidity, guiding them toward safe zones, shielding them from harm. "Stay together! Trust in yourselves," he called, his voice firm but calm. Lyra followed him, helping wherever she could. She noticed that some settlers began acting with courage they had never known. They dodged, ran, and even helped defend themselves, inspired by Kale's presence. Ordinary humans were performing extraordinary feats, guided by his calm confidence and silent power. The battle intensified. The creatures adapted, their attacks more precise, their movements faster. Kale's blade glowed even brighter, energy surging around him in waves. He murmured words in a language Lyra could not understand. The air vibrated with power and the ground beneath them trembled. Lyra realized with a mixture of fear and awe that these were no ordinary attacks. Kale was channeling something ancient, something legendary. The stories he had whispered about human potential, about forgotten heroes, were not just tales, they were real, and Kale was their living proof. One of the larger creatures surged toward Lyra, its form shimmering violently. Without thinking, Kale moved between her and the attacker, his blade slicing through the air with a speed and precision that seemed impossible. The creature's form scattered into tiny particles of light, leaving only a faint shimmer behind. Lyra's hands trembled. "Kale, how?" He turned briefly, his calm expression unshaken. "Humans have strength, Lyra. You just need guidance to awaken it. Tonight you are seeing the first step." The battle raged for what felt like hours. The alien creatures advanced relentlessly, but Kale moved with unwavering focus. Settlers, inspired by his example, fought alongside him. Some improvised weapons from tools and equipment. Others used their knowledge of the colony's systems to create barriers and traps. Humans were rising to the challenge, their courage growing with every pulse of Kale's energy. At one point, Kale leaped onto a small platform above the valley floor, his blade cutting through a cluster of attackers. Energy arcs followed each swing, striking enemies with unerring accuracy. Lyra watched, heart pounding, as the glowing blade seemed to hum with life. She realized that the legends Kale had spoken of, the forgotten heroes, the guardians of human potential, were manifesting through him now. The aliens regrouped, forming a massive swirling entity above the colony. Its energy pulsed like a storm, threatening to overwhelm the settlement. Kale's blade glowed with a brilliant intensity, its light reflecting in his eyes. He closed them for a moment, centering himself. When he opened them, his gaze was steady, unwavering. With a swift motion, Kale raised the blade high. A wave of energy surged outward, connecting with the settlement's defenses. The drones, shields, and automated systems resonated with the power, amplifying Kale's strike. The alien entity faltered, its form destabilizing under the combined force of human courage and Kale's legendary power. Lyra could feel it in her bones, the energy, the awakening, the sheer will of humanity asserting itself against the unknown. She realized that Kale's power was not just in the blade, but in his ability to awaken strength in others, to make humans rise to the challenge when they had thought themselves ordinary. The alien force shattered, dissipating into fragments of light that drifted harmlessly into the sky. The colony's systems hummed with renewed stability. Silence fell, heavy and complete, broken only by the occasional alarm or the soft murmur of settlers checking on one another. Kale lowered his blade, the glow fading to a gentle pulse. His chest rose and fell steadily, his calm presence still unshaken. Lyra approached him, tears of relief and awe in her eyes. "It's over," she whispered. Kyle shook his head slightly. "Not over," he said softly. "Only the beginning. They will return, stronger, smarter, and more determined. But tonight you have seen what humans can become. You have seen legends awaken." The settlers emerged from their shelters looking at Kale with a mixture of reverence and fear. Some fell to their knees, awed by the quiet man who had protected them with seemingly impossible skill. Others stared silently, realizing that their understanding of humanity and of themselves had shifted forever. Lyra stood beside Kale, feeling a sense of pride and purpose she had never known. Ordinary humans had become heroes, guided by the calm strength of the soft-spoken stranger. She understood finally that this was Kale's gift, not just the ability to fight, but the ability to awaken courage, determination, and potential in others. As dawn approached, the sky over Aurelia Prime began to lighten, the soft violet hue fading into gentle morning light. The valley was quiet again, the settlement intact, but Lyra knew that nothing would ever be the same. Humanity had glimpsed its potential, and the legends Kale spoke of were no longer distant stories. They were alive, present in every human who had fought, in every act of courage inspired by the soft-spoken stranger. Kale turned to her, his expression calm but serious. "Rest now," he said gently. "Tomorrow we prepare. The world beyond Aurelia Prime will not wait, and neither can we." Lyra nodded, understanding that this was only the beginning. The alien threat had been driven back, but their arrival had awakened something within the colony, and within herself. She realized that life on Aurelia Prime, once peaceful and ordinary, was now part of something much larger, something legendary, and she would face it with Kale, the soft-spoken stranger whose blade had awakened human potential, and whose presence had begun to write a new chapter in the story of humanity. The morning after the first attack was calm, almost deceptively so. Aurelia Prime glimmered under the gentle light of its artificial sun, its buildings reflecting the valley below. Settlers were cleaning, repairing, and tending to the minor damages left by the alien incursion. Yet under the calm surface, tension hummed in the air. Everyone knew the first attack was only the beginning. Kale walked through the colony, his blade sheathed but his posture vigilant. Settlers approached him with questions, but he answered calmly, always guiding them to think clearly and act decisively. Lyra followed him, carrying tools and devices for repairs. She noticed the subtle changes in the people around them. Ordinary colonists who had never held weapons now carried improvised defenses. Their movements were sharper, their minds quicker. They were learning, awakening under Kale's quiet leadership. Kale gathered a small group of volunteers near the training ground behind the colony. "You survived," he said softly, yet every word carried weight. "But survival is not enough. To protect this home, you must awaken what lies within you. Courage, strategy, and discipline are as important as strength." The settlers looked at him, unsure at first. Then, with his guidance, they began training. Kale taught them how to anticipate movement, how to react instinctively, and how to remain calm under pressure. He emphasized teamwork, making them realize that unity amplified their abilities. Lyra watched as the settlers gradually transformed from frightened civilians into confident defenders. She helped design tools and devices to aid their training, combining engineering with Kale's ancient techniques. Meanwhile, the news of the attack and Kale's incredible skill spread beyond Aurelia Prime. Researchers, historians, and explorers arrived from neighboring colonies, drawn by strange energy readings and reports of the glowing blade. They studied Kale and the colony, amazed at what they saw. Kale remained humble, guiding them to observe, learn, and contribute. But Kale's training was not only physical. He encouraged settlers to think, to solve problems, and to understand the energy that had accompanied the aliens. "Humans are capable of more than brute strength," he explained. "Your intelligence, your creativity, and your will can shape reality when focused. That is the true legend of humanity." Days passed and the colony transformed. Barricades and defense systems were strengthened, but more importantly, settlers were learning to rely on themselves and each other. Even the children trained under Kale's watchful eye, learning awareness and focus. Lyra marveled at the change, seeing bravery bloom in faces that had once shown only fear. Then came the warnings. The energy readings from the sky intensified, strange signals appearing in patterns the colony's sensors had never encountered. Kale studied them, his brow furrowed. "They are not done," he said quietly. "This was only a probe. They are testing, measuring. We must be ready when the real threat arrives." Lyra joined him at the observation platform. "Do you think they will come soon?" she asked. Kale nodded. "Soon, but we are stronger now. Humans can rise to meet challenges they never imagined. Tonight we prepare, and tomorrow we will continue awakening what is already within you all." The settlers, inspired by Kale's leadership, worked tirelessly to improve the colony's defenses. They built energy barriers, strengthened shields, and trained continuously. Kyle's blade continued to glow faintly, a symbol of guidance, strength, and hope. When the next attack came, it was not just Kale who defended Aurelia Prime. Settlers fought alongside him, using their skills, intelligence, and courage. They moved as a unit, coordinated and confident, and for the first time, the alien attackers faced a human force capable of adapting, learning, and responding with strategy rather than panic. The battle was fierce, but unlike the first encounter, the settlers were ready. Kale's teachings had awakened something extraordinary in them. Ordinary humans, once fearful and hesitant, now performed acts that seemed legendary. They dodged, struck, and protected one another with precision and courage. By the time the alien forces were driven back, Aurelia Prime was not just a colony, it was a symbol of human resilience and potential. Kale looked over the valley, his expression calm but proud. Lyra stood beside him, her heart swelling with admiration. She understood now what he had meant when he spoke of legends. Humanity was awakening, not just through his blade, but through its own courage and unity. Kale lowered his glowing sword, whispering softly, "The legends were never gone. They slept in the hearts of humans. Now they are awake." Lyra smiled, feeling the truth of his words. Aurelia Prime had changed forever. Humanity had begun to rise. The weeks that followed were filled with rigorous preparation. Settlers worked in shifts, training, building defenses, and studying the energy anomalies Kale had observed. Aurelia Prime had become a hive of activity, a place where ordinary humans discovered extraordinary potential within themselves. Kale guided each session personally, but he also encouraged settlers to innovate. Lyra developed new tools and devices, amplifying the energy of Kale's blade, creating barriers and designing systems to enhance human agility and perception. Settlers began to experiment, discovering techniques and strategies that Kale had only hinted at. They were learning to rely not just on technology but on themselves. One morning, a scout ship detected a massive fleet approaching from beyond the stars. Unlike the probing attacks before, this was deliberate and organized. Alien warships, larger and more menacing than the earlier attackers, moved with calculated precision. The colony's alarms blared, signaling the arrival of a threat unlike any Aurelia Prime had faced before. Kale stood on the observation platform, the glowing blade in hand. He looked over the settlers who had gathered ready for battle. "This is the moment," he said calmly. "What you have learned, what you have practiced, it all leads to this. Humanity rises not because of one person, but because we are united. Trust in your strength, trust in each other." Lyra joined him, heart pounding. She felt fear, yes, but also an unshakable determination. She had seen the settlers transform, witnessed ordinary humans become extraordinary. She knew that together, guided by Kyle, they could face anything. The battle began at dawn. Alien warships unleashed energy blasts, tearing through the valley's atmosphere. Automated defenses fired, but the fleet adapted quickly. Settlers moved with purpose, executing strategies they had practiced tirelessly. Kale led the charge, his blade slicing through the energy waves with precision, protecting the colony and inspiring those around him. Lyra coordinated the human defenders, her devices amplifying their abilities, enhancing their speed, focus, and reflexes. She saw settlers acting with bravery and ingenuity she had never imagined. People who had once been engineers, farmers, or children now fought like legends, guided by instinct, intelligence, and courage. Kale leapt into the midst of the battle, his glowing blade moving in perfect harmony with the human forces. Each swing created waves of energy, striking multiple attackers at once. But more importantly, every movement he made taught, inspired, and guided the humans around him. Ordinary settlers blocked attacks, protected one another, and adapted strategies on the fly. They were not just following Kale, they were becoming legends themselves. Hours passed, yet the colony held. The alien fleet, expecting an easy victory, found itself facing a human force unlike any it had encountered. Every strategy was countered, every attack anticipated, and every move met with courage and skill. Humans were no longer passive. They were active participants in their destiny, awakening a potential that had lain dormant for centuries. At the climax of the battle, Kale raised his blade high. Energy surged from it, resonating with the courage, unity, and determination of the settlers. A wave of power spread across the valley, striking the alien fleet with a force that shattered their formation. The aliens faltered, disoriented by the combined strength of human courage and Kale's legendary energy. Lyra watched, breathless, as the alien fleet finally retreated. Aurelia Prime stood victorious, its defenders exhausted but triumphant. The colony had faced an overwhelming force and emerged stronger, united and inspired. Kyle lowered his blade, the glow fading to a soft pulse. He looked at Lyra, his calm expression softening. "You see now," he said quietly. "This is what humanity can achieve when it awakens. Not through fear, not through chaos, but through courage, unity, and belief in oneself." Lyra nodded, tears in her eyes. She had seen it firsthand. The settlers, once ordinary, now stood as heroes. Children had grown in courage. Farmers had become warriors. Engineers had become strategists. Aurelia Prime had become a symbol of human potential. A place where legends were no longer stories but reality. The sun rose higher, casting warm light over the valley. Kale and Lyra stood together, looking at the settlement, knowing that while the battle was won, the journey had only begun. Humanity had risen, awakened by a soft-spoken stranger and the courage that lay within every heart. Kale turned to Lyra, his expression calm but full of purpose. "There are more worlds, more challenges, more opportunities for humanity to rise, and you will stand beside me as a partner, as a guide, as a witness to what humans can truly become." Lyra smiled, feeling strength, hope, and determination swell within her. She knew that the legends were not just in the past, they were alive, present in every human who had fought ever.